Hi, I'm Nick Rodriguez with the Squid Ink service team, and welcome to our second video in our series for the Orion marking and coding software, where we're going to discuss the various message elements you can use to print your data with the Copilot system. I hope you enjoy. Since we've already built our print station and assigned a printer to it in our previous video, what we're going to do in today's video is go through the different message elements that you can use to print whatever data that it is you're trying to print. So we'll reference everything that you're going to see here as message elements. So that counts date fields, text fields, and all that. We'll go through each one of the possibilities and show you how they look. So once we're here and we have our print station configured, we can go ahead and hit this new folder or this new sheet of paper here. Orion would like you to name your message right away. So for today's video, we'll do we'll do training test, and then we'll go ahead and hit OK. And previously we did kind of discuss already what these barriers are. Right now, where we're going to make our message is going to be in between these bars here, the bottom red and this top limit, and in between here and here. Now, one thing I'd like to point out that I don't know if we did in the last video is that on this, you'll see a rule at the top of your screen here. This will indicate 0, your leading edge, and the highest number here will be your trailing edge. So we'll go ahead and get started and take a look at all the elements real quick here. Okay, so let's go ahead and explore the various message elements we can use. Now there are a few ways of adding a message element to your substrate here. One is we can go up to the top and hit Insert and select one of our options, which we can see right now. We have text, paragraph, date, time, shift, counter, barcode, these calculation fields, voice pick, and then we go down to image files. We can either select one of these, or we can go ahead and right-click anywhere on our substrate here, and it'll drop down a box that lets us create one of these elements right there on the spot. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up to the leading edge here, and I'm going to right click and select create text here. Now what you'll see right away when you add a text field is you'll get a default data text that kind of shows up. Anytime you add an element or select a message element on your substrate, you will see these orange or red and green boxes that surround it. That's how you know that that's the element that you have selected. Once that's there, you can go up to the top of your screen here, and you'll see that it is now listed as properties. So these are the properties of this specific element. So let's take a look at a few things here. We've got, first and foremost, we've got our font selections that we can use. We have our resident fonts that come with the program, which are listed here. You'll notice that there is no indicator to the left of them. These are all resident to the Orion software. The fonts that you'll see below this, these are all true type fonts. You'll see it, they're listed with a TT right next to them. So any font that you have downloaded on your Windows machine or whatnot will be available here to be used. These are really good for static data, so text that isn't going to change, just like a text field itself. So for today's example, we're going to go ahead and just use Arial Regular, but I am going to increase my size. Let's take a look at height. Now when we look at height, you're going to see these numbers, and these numbers indicate the number of jets essentially that's being used to print your text field. So we can go ahead and go from 64. Let's go from there to where are we? 128. Let's double it, right? Since we're using a max printer, we'll go ahead and just say let's go a little bit taller than that. We don't want to be that short. We'll go 400, perfect. And up here, since I don't want it to print default text, if I go up to my window here, I can go out here and delete this and put in what I want. So I'll go ahead and write Nix test message. And this is going to be way too long. Cool, awesome, it fits. So there we go. We've got our text field that we can add. Now, again, after I've added it onto my element, it doesn't have to stay on my substrate where it is. I can grab it and move it around. What I want to point out is that it won't let you go beyond your printhead boundary. So everything you're doing has to stay there, which is understandable. So we'll go ahead and just keep my Nix test message up at the top, and we'll go ahead and take a look at some of our other elements. So the next element, message element on our list, if we select right click and we go down our list, we'll see create paragraph text here. Now the main difference between text and paragraph text is with paragraph text we can adjust the justification of our text itself, and it also allows the text to wrap according to the size of the element that you want. So if we were to try this here, we'll just do a bunch of W's and see what happens, right? So what you can see is that based on the size of my element, it wraps my text. That's the main difference. With the regular text, that's not going to happen. It's going to stay in one line, one little field. Here I can make as many little segments I need, stretch out my text, and add it. This is a really good option for folks who are trying to put in an ingredients list or something with a lot of description. Paragraph text would be a great way to go ahead and put that on your space. And I'll say this, you can go ahead and copy a text and paste it in here. If you have messages or items that you want to add in here and possibly don't want to write it all, you can copy and paste. Just right click here in the space and it allows you to paste whatever you have copied there. So we'll go ahead and just leave this here just to show you that that is paragraph text right there. We'll go to the next element here, but before we do that, let's just take a look. Again, the same similar stuff as our regular text. You got your choice on the font type that you want to use and the font height, right? So it's always, doesn't stay this way. It can be adjusted according to how you want it to look, right? And then again, the justifications. Right now, it always defaults to left. We can center it, as you can see there. Or right justify, as you can see there. So we'll just go back to center and move on to our next element. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue to go down our list. We're going to enter into our variable data fields now. Variable data fields meaning counters, date, time, anything that's going to increase or change on its own based on parameters. So let's go ahead, we'll go down our list. The first one here is our counter. It's really small. Let's make that a little bit bigger. We'll go ahead and give ourselves a large counter there. So one of the things I'll point out here is, again, this is a variable element field, right? Variable data field. You'll see the difference in your message by the blue color that we're seeing here. I'm going to go ahead and add the zeros here so you can see a little bit more of it. So you can see that this counter is going to start at 1 and this is blue, so it means it's going to index on its own. It's going to change on its own with each print. Anything that's static data that won't change, is going to be presented as black. So our text field and our paragraph text. Our counter field and our other fields that you'll see will be presented as blue. I just want to make sure that you understand why there's a change in color. So now that we've got our counter selected again by the squares around it, we'll go ahead and look at the properties menu here. Same idea with the font and the height. Again, since it's a variable data field, you are limited with the fonts that you can use just to the resident fonts in Orion. So that's one difference between static information and variable data, right? So we're not going to change our font, but this is your list. I'm going to keep my height there. I like that. You'll see character spacing and width. Generally, that doesn't get changed unless you are running out of space and you need to make adjustments here. So if I go with I can shrink my width X down, and that's on all elements here. So normally it's going to be at 1. But let's move to our properties for the counter specifically. We've got our type. You can do numeric or alpha alphanumeric. It is up to you. Most folks are using numeric. We can also designate the trigger. You'll see that you only have one option. You can decide to add multiple counters that can trigger off of each other. That's what this is for here. And that's more for like batch counting and whatnot that you want to add to it. We can cover that a little bit more in depth in another video. Direction, up or down, pretty self-explanatory. Your start, your stop. So what this is telling us is it's going to go from 1 to 999 before it reverts back to 1. We can increase that. It doesn't have to be here. It can be 1, 2, 3, however many 9s we need for the space. So keep that in mind. Your stop there, your current value, your step. So how much do we want it to increase or decrease by? Again, typical is going to be just by 1, but you can adjust this if you need to. I'm going to leave it at 1. And then padding. Padding is either going to have nothing but your number or add your zeros in front of it so you can see how large the space can possibly get, right? So this is the largest size this element will ever be. If I want the zeros there or if I don't want the zeros, that's kind of up to you. So I'm going to have my zeros there. I'm going to move my stop back down to a little bit more of a reasonable size. And you can also, after you select your padding and whatnot, you can select its reset. Reset meaning I go from 1 to 99 and I reset, or, which is what this is set up for when it reaches the stop value, or you can say I want it to keep counting until it reaches a certain time of day. Okay, when we do that, you got to tell it what time of day you want it to restart at. So this is going to be based off of what is actually the time and date on your Copilot controller once this message gets there. Anytime you see a time that is starting with a 00, that is indicating midnight. So we'll just leave that here. We'll cover more of the time stuff when we get to the date and time fields, which should be coming up after this one. So that's counters. Let's go ahead and move on. So let's go ahead and move on past our counter element and go to our next variable data field. We'll right click, go down, and we'll see create date here. Again, I'm going to increase the size of that so it's a little bit bigger. There we go. Let's talk about our format, right? So we already know about the font types. It's variable data because of the blue that we see here. Let's talk about the format here. So what you'll see is up at the top at the properties tab here, you'll see format. And if you hover your mouse right over that format and let it sit there, you will see the key to the different format selections you can use. It doesn't have to be month, month, day, day, year, year, year. It can be however you want it to be. Now, it also doesn't have to be one of the ones on this list. You can use one of these and add it to it, or you can just type it out. So for today, we'll go ahead and just make sure I got my caps on. We'll go month, month, day, day, year, year, and you'll see that it changes the way it behaves on my substrate. All right, I have no separators. I've got my month here, my day here and my year here. So this is based off of the time and date of your Windows machine, but once it gets onto your or whatever PC you're using, but once it gets onto the controller, it'll go off of the time and date of your controller. Okay, so in the same format that you have it here. So one of the popular other options that people use besides that, we'll go ahead and just we'll do a separator here. Separator is also to include a Julian date, right? So we can go ahead and just right click underneath here, make a date again, another field. Now to point out, you can have up to 16 of each type of variable data field in a message. I have not seen anybody use that many, but it's a possibility, right? So I can have 16 dates, I can have 16 counters. Let's go ahead and go up with my second date here. I'll make this slightly bigger, right there. And a lot of people like to see Julian dates. Well, for us, our Julian date is signified by 3 J's. And if you hover your mouse over, you'll see that 3 J's indicate a 3-digit Julian date. So here's what I have for my Julian date. I'm going to add that right there. And that's our date elements. Now, this is also a spot that you would put in for expiration dates. If you have time that you want this to be, we can put that in our message, expiration or best by or something like right here as a text element, and then have a date here that automatically calculates that, right? So there's a couple of different ways that we can set up that calculation. One is I can use my month or day offset here. I can either give it a number here saying, well, it's going to expire in a month, hit enter, and you'll see that now my month changes here down here, right? Or I go back to 0, bring it back to today's date. But let's say it's not a month, I have a year, so, or days. We'll do 365 for our days out and hit enter, and you'll see that it changes. Now we got our year out right here, right? If you don't know how many days out, but you know the specific date for whatever reason, you can use the calendar icon and then go ahead and travel to the desired date that you are looking for. Okay, so a couple of different ways we can use this element here to, one, present today's date, and then a separate field make expiration date, or like we have here, a offset of a year with today's actual Julian date, right? So a couple of different ways to do that. Again, we can go up to the top here and do time offset as well if we want to get really critical as to when that changes during that day and the start of day. So moving on to our next element, we'll go ahead and right click. Let's do it right next to our Julian date right here. And we go down to our list and it is create time here. I'm going to increase my size right there. So again, we'll explore the properties of this. Let's hover again over the format. You'll see that the date and time format share the same menu. So just we'll have to go down to the bottom half of the format table here to see what you can do for your time. 1H equals a 2-hour or a 2-digit 12-hour format, or 2 H's, which would give us military time, right? So right now we're set up to do a 12-hour format. There's our minutes and then our AM indicator there, but we can change that. So let's go ahead and we'll change it to HH, and I'll do separator and now we don't have our AM PM indicator, and we've turned it into a 24-hour clock here, right? So that's the main thing here, is to go ahead and make sure that you put in how intricate or how sensitive you want it. We can dial it down to the seconds if need be, so we can go ahead and add seconds going on to this as well. If we just add 2 S's, or do HH here and N and SS right there. And that kind of gives you the minutes and the seconds. However, you won't see it update until you select an element, right? So it's not going to show on here as well as it will on the controller when you get it out there. So some folks use seconds there to create a little bit more information on their, on their message here. Many people are fine using just the hours and minutes. So we did say we're going to talk about time offset, right? So time offset, when you see this 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, meaning that that is midnight, right? So start of day is going to be at midnight. If you want your time or your day to start at a different time other than midnight, meaning it transfers over to the next day, you'd have to set this up here. You have to say that, no, it's not midnight for us. We have a shift that works past midnight, and they stop at, 3 in the morning or 2 in the morning, what have you. You can go ahead and add that here. So what you can do is just add a 1 or something like that, and this will tell you that your time of day will change over at 1 in the morning. Right? So most people, again, midnight is midnight, and they just use it that way. So there's our time. I'm going to go ahead and just re-add my AM, PM to it. There we go. And we'll see my timestamp there. So let's go ahead and move on to our next element. All right, so moving on to our next variable field here. We're going to go down to shift, and again, make that a little bit taller. There's my shift, right? We'll just move some of this stuff over a little bit. We'll put this down here, and here's our shift, right? Let's take a look at this. We can shrink that down a little bit smaller. We still need some space for some other things. So shift, we can go ahead and split the work day into 2 to 4 segments, right? And what we can do here is define the start time of each one of those segments. Now what you'll see is shift 1 starts at midnight based on this time here. Shift 2 starts at 6 in the morning, which is why it's registering as shift 2 here, as it's 10 a.m. right now where we're at. Shift 3 at noon, and shift 4 slightly after that. So what we're going to see is it's going to print what you have next to the shift, right? So we can go ahead and change this to someone's name or a line or what have you, or it can be shift B. And hit enter. Okay, so anything you put in that current shift, that the space here is what it will print. So if you want a little bit more trackability on your product or your line or your build times or whatever it is you want to do, adding a shift code or something here, and again, it doesn't even have to say shift. We can just erase shift altogether and hit enter. Anytime you make a change up here, you want to hit enter before it takes hold, and you'll see something here if you want to obfuscate that a little bit more. So those are your options for shift. Obviously, you don't have to use these times. You can start your shift times whatever you want. It's just going to say that we're using 4, or we can go down to 2 hour or 2 shifts as well. So up to you on how you want to use it. But that's what we're going to go with here. So I've got my B for shift 2 there, and that's it. So we're going to go ahead and move on. I believe the next one we're going to look at is going to be barcodes, and we'll take a look at the different barcodes we can go ahead and add onto this. Okay, so moving on, we will go ahead and now we're going to go ahead and add a barcode, perhaps a couple here. So if we go right click, create barcode here, you'll see that it defaults to the top of the list, right? So let's take a look at our properties here and what we can do with it. Same ideas with your height and whatnot that we did with the other systems. I'm just going to go ahead and increase my barcode a little bit there. We'll talk about why it looks like that in a little bit, but let's first go ahead and just take a look at the symbology library that we have. We have it right now in our Orion to default to a code 128. You can specify that, and you can specify what it defaults to, and we can cover that once we go into a little bit further detail of the options menu here that we'll see. But for right now, we'll just kind of briefly skim through all these different options. I think the most common that we'll see are going to be UPC barcodes, code 128 barcodes, ITF, stuff like that. Now, when you're making your message, should have an understanding of what barcode you're using, and if you don't, you can go ahead and just scan a barcode from an example and see what it comes up as using any app or anything like that on your phone. Most commonly, we deal with people that are using code 128, and what we'll do here is I'm going to make it even a little bit taller because I can't really see that. And when I make it taller, you'll see that the width stays the same. One of the things that we have here on the settings are these two settings right here, narrow bar and spread factor. Narrow bar is going to change the actual width of your barcode, and it's a ratio setting between the narrow bars and the thick bars, right? So right now we're set it at 2. That's how it looks. Let's go to 5. So as you can see, it jumps around a little bit. Going from 5, let's go to 7 and see that, right? So you'll see that your barcode increases in width when we change our narrow bar. The other option here, or the other setting that we have to keep in mind, is spread factor, and that's going to limit the amount of ink that's being used to print that barcode. Now, the reason why these two settings are important is for scannability, right? Each substrate that you're going to print on, whether it's craft or it's white porous or it's something else that you're printing on, these are the two settings that you'll need to spend some time on to adjust, right? You're always going to want to go with the width that you're trying to achieve on your barcode with your narrow bar, and then with your spread factor, I always like to start at the middle, but you can start wherever. For applications like a corrugate box or something like that, that is going to sit for a while, the ink can migrate while it's been sitting, so you may want to increase your spread factor to reduce that amount of ink. You know, if we go from a 3 back to 0, you can see how drastic that changes. Now, you'll see kind of every time I hover over the barcode, it gives you a little bit of information. I'm pointing at the screen. Gives you information as to what is in that barcode or what kind of data it can accept, right? We can also do the same thing if we hover here. So it'll tell you the different types of barcodes or what's in that symbology. And if I go to a code 38, I can hover there as well, and it'll tell me more about that barcode. So we can go through all of these, but that'll take forever. So what we'll do is just say that each barcode has its own settings that are different in terms of the data that can be used inside of the barcode and how it looks on your screen. But all barcodes are going to have this narrow bar and spread factor, and that should be something that you adjust and get right for your application. All right, so narrow bar of 7. I'm going to go down to 2 or 3. There we go. 2 looks good. I would start there, print, and see how scannable that barcode is and make adjustments until we find the right spot. So that's that kind of barcode. Now, if you don't want to do a linear barcode, we can create another one here. We'll just say, oh, we'll get off of that. We'll do create barcode here. We do have the option of doing data matrix barcodes. And again, very small, so my narrow bar will increase that to 9, we'll go to 10. This one you'll have a little bit more of a range to get to, so let's go to 16. You can see now I've got my 2D barcode, and we're going to place it right here. Now, what some people do is they will also embed information into that barcode for serialized information or something like that. So that is an option with certain symbologies. Both my data matrix and my code 128 options have that feature here. And what we'll do is you'll go ahead and look at it underneath the area that you would put your data, right? So here's my data bar. Right now, that's the information in my code 128 barcode. I can change that to whatever I want, or I can add more information. So I want that one to, all the way till 11 digits, and then add, let's say, one of my elements that I already have in my message. So if you use this drop-down box, you'll see every other element that we have here. Most commonly, people are going to put in a date or a time into their barcode. So I can go ahead and do something like this. And once I've selected that, I'll make sure my cursor is behind my data and hit embed. And now you'll see my barcode changes, right? Now it has that digit and that embedded date in my barcode. Let's see if we can take a closer look at that and make sure that it's accurate. I'm going to increase my human readable. And there we go. You can see my 11 digits and my date field embedded into my barcode. Now again, this feature is going to be limited by what type of barcode symbology you're using and whether or not you have special characters. So that's barcodes. We can do linear, we can do 2D. GS 128s are an option as well. Let's just real quick kind of take a look at that. We've got those listed here with support of application identifiers. And the information on how to set that up can be found in the Orion User's Guide. So there's a full list of the application identifiers and whatnot and how to configure that barcode there. So if you have specific information or questions about these symbologies, the User's Guide would be a great place to go to get a quick description. Okay, so let's move on to our last element that we will cover today, and that's going to be our graphics. We're going to select create graphic here. Now there's a couple of different options that we can do. You can select a graphic from the gallery, which comes loaded with these fine examples. CE, FCC, fragile, this. We'll go ahead and just add a little fire symbol there. Once you have it on your substrate, you can either then use your width and height up at the properties, or you can drag it a little bit there and make it to the size that you want. So that is an option, right? So we can do that. Let's go ahead and put that down here. Or you can select a graphic from your desktop or somewhere that you're saved to, right? So today we're going to go ahead and use this Squid Ink logo that we found, and there we go. Now the original image of this is in color. So Orion does a pretty good job of converting that into a printable field, right? You'll see it kind of gets this little gray area here. Now this is a colored image that then Orion converted on its own, and it looks pretty good. If you have a very intricate logos or something like that, you may want to touch that up before it gets to Orion. But for the most part, I feel that Orion does a pretty good job at doing that conversion for you. And again, you can adjust things here by percent or what have you to adjust the grayscale or what have you on it. So some cool things we can do with it when it comes to the graphics, but it should print exactly as we see here. So we went ahead and made a message using pretty much all of the elements, or at least all of the basic level of the elements. There are a few other things that we can cover that go a little bit further in depth of the possibilities of each specific element, but that's usually going to be application specific. So let's go ahead and wrap this up. So when you have your message created, like this is going to be what I want to print, what we'll see is a couple of things. One, you'll see this asterisk up here on your tab, right this way. This is letting you know that you have unsaved information on this message. You've added things that have not been saved. So if I want to save this, I will go to my top here go to my message tab and just select save. Now, what this does is it saves this current message to the print station that we created in our earlier video, right? So we've got a print station here. This message is now saved under this print station. And again, since we just saved it, the asterisk is gone. We know that this is the latest and greatest version of this message. And we've included all the possible elements that we can add to it. So that about wraps that portion up. Again, I'm Nick Rodriguez with the Squid Ink service team. I hope you found today's video on the message elements helpful. And if you'd like to find any more videos, feel free to search for us on YouTube or elsewhere on the web. We'll see you next time.